Okay, let's go ahead and call the meeting to order at, I have 7:02. Go ahead and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for the large print. Hey, let's go ahead and we have presentations, proclamations, and presentation. Go ahead and approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, Nico. We do have one counselor online tonight. All right, but now let's move on to presentations, proclamations, and visitors. Are there any visitors? Moving on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Consent agenda is approved. Moving on to number 4, public hearings. There are no public hearings tonight. Moving on to number 5, old business. There is no old business. Number 6, new business. Item A, West Tech Engineering wastewater treatment plan, 100% design proposal. We'll have, who's presenting? Kirsty's presenting tonight.
Hello, Kirsty Pizzito, Assistant City Administrator. You guys are pretty familiar with the wastewater project at this point. We've brought it up quite a bit. It's a big project that we've been dealing with. So the preliminary design was completed by West Tech, and it was reviewed and approved by DEQ. The work is expected to take a little less than 2 years to complete for this portion of it, which is the 100% design. So that is a pretty short timeline, or a long timeline for what we have, because we have a pretty compact deadlines. So we've got deadlines from our funding packages and from EPA for our compliance schedule that we have to stay in compliance with. So those are things that we have to keep in mind as we're going through this process. The couple of things to note on here on this proposal are the BABA requirements, which is a new requirement in the last few years. So our project's probably going to be one of the first that's completed in the state of Oregon under BABA requirements, which is Build America, Buy America. The lamest thing to say out loud, BABA, but awful. Anyway, so that is something that we're going to have to try to build in. So to account for that, there's going to be some extra work that is handled by the engineer of record rather than under this contract. So that's also noted in the proposal. A couple other things, the construction of the wastewater treatment plant will be one bid document, and a second bid document will be for the removal of the biosolids, which have never been removed up to this point in our lagoons that have been around for many, many years. So it's about time. And that will have to be done right before the treatment plant is completed so that they can estimate where they're allowed to put any of the treated water afterwards. And TAG will be the integrator of record, as we've discussed a few other times. And we'll also need a specialized contractor for the biosolids removal near the end of the construction, like I mentioned. I think you guys aren't probably surprised by any of this stuff, so let me know if you have any questions.
This is the final
This is
approval of the
Final,
plans.
no,
The
it's
proposal.
the final design
For
to
the-
be done.
right.
Final
So we've
design.
done 20% and then now we have to get to 100% because DEQ approved it.
Yeah, so they approved the 20% design. From there, you don't want to go past that because they want to make sure that you're in line with what they need. So now that they've approved the 20%, we can go forward with the rest of the design.
If there are no further questions, is there a motion for the design proposal?
I move to approve the West Tech wastewater treatment plant final design and engineering services proposal with a not to exceed amount of 980,000 as presented by staff.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Moving on to 6B, FCS wastewater financial plan and rate forecast contract agreement.
Yeah, so we talked about this at the last meeting as well on December 11th. I printed out a couple of staff reports for you guys for that as well. As we talked about, the projects that we have going on are pretty spendy. We've got a $28 million wastewater project. And then we also have the Public Works building and the other potable water projects. So we've got a lot of debt that we're building up. We did get $16 million in grant funding for the wastewater project, which is great. But that still leaves about $11 million that we will have to have financed. So that means that we're building all this debt. It's going to have to go into rate increases for the public. So we're trying to find out how much exactly that's going to be so we can anticipate it at a reasonable rate to increase for the public. So last meeting, we talked about having FCS group do this rate study. And we approved the proposal for that. This is for the actual agreement that we have put together over the last couple of weeks with FCS. So this contract is a tiny bit different than the one that we presented at the last meeting by, I think, a couple $100, simply because the last one that we presented was an estimate to try to actually compare their proposal to the other proposal that we were presenting. So this is for the actual work that they will be doing. So it's for a not to exceed amount of $23,080, but there are some additional add-ons that we can choose to add on at a later time that would let us use their technical data if we want to use it for internal projects later on. And that would be an additional contract that we would add on if we wanted to at that time.
Are there any questions?
The final do not exceed is the 27,006 or 27,765. Final do not succeed.
20,
Yes, It
Oh.
is, that's what we're asking for approval for the contract, but about 4,000 plus is optional. We may or may not exercise that option.
We're asking for 23, but it could go up to 27.
this particular agreement is for the 23,000, but if we choose to, we can add on the 27,000. The very first meeting that we're having with them is like a strategic meeting where we're going to talk with them about what we want to do, what we plan to do with this project and what we plan to do with the future. So, and that's where I'm assuming we'll have that conversation of whether or not we want to include that additional work or not. So yeah, at that time, we'll probably figure out whether we want to add that on or not.
But you're asking us to agree to both of those amounts, right?
I think the contract, I don't have it in front of me.
No, we're just asking
In
for
the
the
actual agreement.
23,080.
Yeah, I think it's,
If there's an additional need for the rest,
We would come back with.
You would-
We'll
Yeah.
come back for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
right. Thank you.
is there, if there's no further questions, is there a motion for this proposal?
I move to approve the FCS group agreement for the wastewater financial plan and rate forecast with a not to exceed amount of $23,080 as presented by staff.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Moving on to number 7, the city administrator report. Ron will give his report.
Wow, I got up here quick. Gonna have to slow this down a little bit. I have a lot to say too, so.
We're used to it.
So I appreciate council approving those two contracts. I know we'd been talking about this final design contract and what that would look like. And it's not very big. It's only a couple of pages, but it's $1 million and that's a lot of money for us. So just for the public's information, we'd been working on that for a long time. It is through our engineer of record and who's working on that design, and it actually saves the city a lot of money having an uncertainty to have to go out and get individual consultants. It's much easier if we can do it through our engineer of record. Their prices are set. And so it's just a matter of accumulating those hours through the contract. And oftentimes we've had a number of these contracts that we've approved through our engineer of record that actually came in under the contract amount, just because it didn't take them as many man hours and time and material, so to speak. So, but I just want to talk about that. So most of that contract will be funded through a pass-through ARPA grant that we received from Marion County. Some of that money that's not covered, there'll be a little bit that we won't be able to cover with this contract that'll come out of our direct ARPA award from the federal government. We've got a little bit of that money, excuse me, left. And managing all of these funds in and out, what we've spent out of what pool, because if you look at all the different funding mechanisms that we've been able to leverage, the different grants, the different pools, where they're coming from, who they're administered from, there is 8 to 12 different funding streams that we've accessed for this particular project. And each of those have different reporting requirements, different timelines. All the ARPA money has to actually be committed by the end of this year. So anything that was approved through the American Rescue Plan, and that also means any sub-programs that were funded through the American Rescue Plan. So juggling all of that is a little bit of a nightmare, but we'll be working through those numbers. But I just wanted you to know money is secured for these contracts thus far. We're not into leveraging any of the debt as of yet. But that's something that we'll be working on this year. We have been pre-approved through USDA Rural Development for all but $4 million of our estimated cost. And the reason why we separated $4 million was to leverage maximum grant return. DEQ has a program where they can provide loan forgiveness for up to $2 million that was provided through the infrastructure program. I can't remember what they call it, but for a long time they called it the infrastructure program, but I think there's something else. So we could leverage up to $2 million in loan forgiveness. So it's up to 50%, no more than $2 million. So we separated $4 million from the project when we applied to USDA, because if you change your funding through USDA after you apply, you have to apply all over again. And we needed to lock in that $8 million or $6 million loan forgiveness. Sorry, my number's in my head. And so we really don't have an opportunity unless we could get, $20 million somewhere, which money is getting tighter, not more available, where there's really many options for us, but to plow ahead. So in the next few months, we really need to solidify what the plan is. And I think that's why it's important to have the FCS contract on board, start to look at what some of those rates look like, so that we can start having a very honest conversation with our community about, when the timing of this implementation and what that looks like. Obviously, FCS will come forward with some recommendations. We're probably on a 2-year, I know this contract's for like 18 months for the design. It could get done earlier. As a matter of fact, we're pushing for it to get done earlier because we really want to stay ahead of that timeline. But we could easily, within a 2-year period, we could be into construction, which means we have to be approved for both construction funding and permanent funding. The construction funding will come separate. It's a temporary funding, and that all comes from DEQ itself. And then the permanent funding will come from those other sources. Obviously, any cash grants that we have available to us, we'll utilize that to buy down, any funding costs that are associated with that. But we've got a lot ahead of us. We've got the reservoir project, which will probably start in March. They'll be mobilizing in March. That's a $4 million project. On top of that, we should be closing out the Public Works facility about the same time. But then we're going to be knee deep into this whole wastewater project. So I don't know if you have any other questions. I think I tried to fill in maybe some of those missing bits of information if somebody just tuned in from the last report. But if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those on the projects. Did I confuse you, or does everybody on the same page with me? Yep. Okay, good. I like that.
Were you trying to confuse us?
So
Was that your goal?
No,
Confuse us?
no, I wasn't trying to confuse you, but
No.
there are times where we're standing around a little confused because the BABA requirements, we got funding 2 years ago, but that BABA was something that they just added, and so we asked the state folks questions about implementation and proprietary equipment that, is like one source and different things and doing exceptions. And nobody really understands it. So nobody really has a good answer. So hopefully we'll learn as we go on how to implement some of that. All right. So the next item that's really important to discuss is a kind of an event planning strategy meeting. I know it was requested a couple times last year by a number of council members. I actually think it's a good idea because I think it'd be good for us to have a good conversation about where we see some of our community events going. I think it's important just to note that we do a lot of community events and community outreach type programs. We probably do more than cities with like full parks and recs departments. And we do that, with people here and there. So we're really doing a lot. So I think it would be good to have a meeting. I'd like to do it sooner rather than later. And what we're thinking of is just a strategy work session, something we could have at night after work for a few hours, see where it leads us. And, if we need to schedule some subsequent meetings, we can do that. But what I'd like to do is just see if council has any preferred days of the week. If, early next week works for you, if you want to push that further towards the end of the month, just kind of see where you guys are as far as availability. Every Friday? How about like Tuesday, Wednesday at night or, yeah. Yeah, we're thinking after work. So, okay. Everybody else, do you have any days where you're not available?
Days and Wednesdays,
Mondays and Wednesdays?
except for the 15th. I don't have anything that Monday.
Okay,
17th and 18th, I'm gonna be out of town in the evening. We'll be back on the 19th though.
okay,
I think the 19th lands on a Friday.
yep. So how about if we do this tomorrow, we'll sit down and put together a list of dates and we'll send out the little poll that we do. If you guys could be diligent about answering that as soon as you can, and then we'll go ahead and get a couple of dates scheduled. But basically, I'm not going to have a lot of prepared material. We're just going to come in here as a work session. We're just going to go through the list of events and do a little brainstorming. How's that sound?
I
Okay,
think the
great.
sooner the better. There's some, when we talk about getting sponsors and stuff, those requests should be going out this month at the very latest, the first week in February for larger corporations. So just
Okay.
FYI.
And I think we could go ahead and start doing sponsors. So I think if you have some people in mind, yeah. And maybe connect with me and we can go through a list. I have a list of local folks that I connect to, but maybe you and I can just do a quick
Okay.
debrief. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good. That sounds good. All right, state of the city. So we decided, you know what, we want to make it easy on everybody. We're just going to provide dinner for you guys. for the joint meeting with the Planning Commission and the council. That's going to be at the next council meeting on the 22nd, but we're going to start the dinner joint meeting at 6. And then the council meeting will start at 7. We're going to have a couple of small action items and then we'll do the state of the city. And I know I can get long-winded with the state of the city. I will try to move through it a little quicker for you. But it's just, we do so much and there's so many things to talk about. And I think it's a good time to kind of sum all the work that we did up into one area, but I'll try to move a little faster on that for you. All right. Police vehicles, so as I think I informed council that there was an accident when we were responding to that threat at the school a couple of weeks ago that got called in. Turned out to be a hoax, but one of our police cars was involved in an accident responding and the car's totaled. And so we're working with the insurance company to find out what the city will ultimately receive for that car, but it's about $30,000 to repair. The car's probably not worth $30,000. I think they're 4 or 5 years old now. And so we just ordered 2. We don't know when they're going to come in. I think we got a VIN number finally, but we haven't got a delivery date. And so the question will be, do we need to supplement? Do we need to order a third one, or can we wait maybe until next year and try to do one? I think we're probably okay waiting, although it gets harder to get these vehicles. So we'll have to talk about opportunity and availability. Right now, we changed from Fords to Dodges just because Ford didn't have a timeline. We actually, through our vendor, still have vehicles ordered through both. We're not obligated to take them. But we may not want to wait till next year and then wait another year for a car. So there may be some options there. So we'll talk to you about that. Public workshops moving along. They're starting to close it up this week. I was out there today. It's looking good. And then just wanted you all to know that I'm going to be on vacation the 21st through the 8th. So I would need to miss the February 26th meeting. Under my contract, I need your permission to be able to do that. I'm guessing that we probably will cancel that meeting anyway, but if we don't cancel it, I'm very confident in our staff can put everything together for it. And I will be working a couple of days during that period of time remotely, just because there's just stuff that I'll have to work on remotely because of timing and things like that. So.
Yeah, who approved that?
Who needs to not work on?
Well, you would actually approve it tonight.
So is it February?
February 26th.
February 21st. Yeah.
February 26th meeting.
Yeah, the 26th would be the meeting that would fall in between that. It's hard to schedule a couple of week vacation and not hit a meeting. So
So do we need to vote on it or you just need an?
I just
okay?
need consensus.
Well,
Yeah.
you can go on vacation.
Okay.
If we need, if there isn't,
We would love
All
to
right.
have Kirsty fill in for you.
if there isn't anything that needs to be dealt with, like, I don't see a problem with, canceling the meeting.
Yep.
I have a wedding that week, so I'm gonna be really, really busy anyway, so I wouldn't mind canceling the meeting.
Okay.
Enjoy your vacation. We'll take our vacation.
All right. Well, unless there's something critical, time sensitive, we
Yeah.
probably will just cancel that
Okay.
meeting, which I'm expecting. I think I said to someone earlier, I'm expecting to see it slow down just a little bit because we're at the policy or decision making level, because we're involved in the construction of all the projects. So we'll be busier at City Hall, maybe less planning policy level decisions. However, we do need to start ramping up our strategic planning for the next round of needed
I don't
projects
think
and
We're
problems.
ever
to
gonna
solve.
slow down, Ron.
If you don't have anything else, I'm just gonna close out my book here.
Okay,
We're good.
Thank you.
moving on to Mayor and councilor reports. Is there anything to report?
Well, I can tell you that the SCATS agenda it wasn't canceled in January, but Mayor Hoy couldn't be there, so it's been moved to February to discuss Aumsville status with them. When I told Angie that January meeting was canceled, it was actually the MWAC meeting. It was
Oh, it's the
canceled.
Amway.
But I was getting the notices at the same time, and so I confused that. To clarify, we're still meeting in January, but we won't be discussing Aumsville until February.
So is it the February one that I want to go to?
Yes.
Okay.
Local Public Safety Council is tomorrow. One thing I was gonna ask is it would be nice to have some type of a city ID. You know, some kind of a city name tag or something.
we used to have them.
Add those or.
We can order you one.
Yeah, we probably need to order 4 of them,
Okay.
I would imagine.
We used to have the
Well,
little magnetic ones. I think I
yeah.
still have mine
Yeah,
that says
something
city
like that.
councilor.
We'll order new ones for everybody. We haven't, there hasn't been a lot of demand for them lately, so we kind of got out of cycle, but we'll get everybody one.
I still have mine, it's fine.
Okay.
You won't have to get me one.
Tomorrow there is a ribbon cutting ceremony at 2:00 for our Aumsville Community Food Bank at Bethel. So,
And there will be refreshments. So
if you guys are available, please come. I will be there.
so will I.
That's tomorrow at 4.
At
2 to 4,
2 to 4.
between 2 and 4, but the ribbon cutting is at 2:15. So
Moving on to good of the order. Is there anything for good of the order? So moving on, correspondence, any correspondence? None. There is no executive session, so we will go ahead and end the meeting at 7:28 PM.